The edge of the world. According to some people, Antarctica is where the Earth comes to an end. Those who believe in the flat Earth theory have even discussed launching an expedition there to prove that the world stops right at the edge of Antarctica. For now, though, they're not planning to go anytime soon. Instead, they've organized a cruise in warmer waters, where fellow believers can meet, share ideas, and talk about just how flat the Earth really is. The journey to Antarctica, they promise, will come later. Skeptics argue that they're simply afraid of being proven wrong, and that they'll never actually dare to go. But to be honest, the thought of a cruise to the so-called end of the world does sound intriguing, like an adventure into the very center of the Earth itself. So, what is the foundation of their belief? Robbie Davidson, the man organizing the trip, says that if you were to compress the globe, Antarctica would wrap around the Earth and form its outer edge. They also believe the Earth is like a massive snow globe, with the sun, the moon, and the stars all contained inside. Is Antarctica hiding a civilization? There is a map that shouldn't exist. What if I told you that a 16th century map depicted Antarctica without ice, centuries before the continent was officially discovered? And the strangest part is, this isn't the only map. You might be thinking, well, sure, we've all heard about the Piri Reis map. But this time, it's another one. This is the work of Orance Finay, also known as Orontius Finnaeus. His map from the year 1531 isn't just a doodle, it is an astonishingly accurate drawing of Antarctica, complete with the Weddell and Ross Seas, long before anyone was supposed to have laid eyes on the frozen land. This is where things get interesting. History tells us Antarctica wasn't discovered until the year 1820, so how could Orance, a 16th century cartographic master, have pulled off this feat of geographic magic? Did he have a crystal ball or, as some theories suggest, access to an incredibly detailed map predating human history itself? Think about it. In 1818, only 2 years before the official discovery, we had Pinkerton's world map. Where Antarctica should have been, there was nothing but a blank void, a giant question mark proving that Pinkerton knew absolutely nothing. How could a man 300 years later be so wrong, when Orance seemed so uncannily right? Let me tell you about Orance. He wasn't just any map maker. Born in 1494 in France, he was a mathematical genius, once dropped out of medical studies, and was also a frequent guest of Parisian prisons. He was jailed twice. Why? Perhaps because he had a habit of irritating people with his brilliance, but he bounced back, becoming head of mathematics at the Collège Royal in Paris. He even built astronomical clocks based on a geocentric model of the universe, where everything revolved around Earth instead of the Sunday. So here we have a brilliant, eccentric mind and a map that defies all logic. Was it just a lucky accident, or is it proof that Antarctica was once home to a civilization without ice? Could there really have been an ancient society buried beneath miles of ice? As I said, this is not the only map. There is the Piri Reis map from 1513, drawn by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer himself. There is also the 18th century Gouache map, which also portrays an ice-free Antarctica. Then comes Charles Hapgood, the historian who insisted that Antarctica only became ice-covered much more recently than we think. So what really happened? Did explorers catch glimpses of Antarctica from afar, then secretly report their findings to the authorities? Maps were powerful weapons in a world full of mystery. If you had the coordinates of new lands, you certainly didn't want your enemies to know. You'd want to be the first to conquer and exploit its riches. Perhaps that's why some maps show Antarctica, while others leave it blank. It was classified information. But the question of the ice remains the greatest mystery of all. The mystery of the Arctic. What drove the Vikings and their longships to the very ends of the frozen Earth? The answer may surprise you. The Arctic winds howled, icy waves crashed against wooden hulls, and bearded Norsemen in rough woolen tunics slid across a desolate frozen land. What were they searching for? Walrus tusks. Not gold, not spices, not dragons or legendary maidens, but walrus ivory. Yet this was no simple Viking version of the Hunger Games. According to new research, this frosty trade led to a secret meeting between two civilizations, centuries before Columbus even thought about packing his bags. 200 years before his birth, Vikings and Arctic tribes were trading walrus tusks. That is the foundational truth, but it's only the beginning of a startling story. In medieval Europe, walrus ivory was the iPhone of luxury goods. Church taxes could be paid in tusks. Lavish gifts were made in tusks. Want to impress your neighbors? Show off your walrus collection. Anthropobiologist Emily Rees-Pora of the University of Copenhagen explains that walrus ivory was considered the gold of its age. And it makes sense, because if you've ever tried approaching a 1-ton walrus, you know that harvesting its tusks is no weekend hobby. Viking warriors risked their lives traveling hundreds of miles into the Arctic Circle in fragile wooden ships just to hunt walruses. Why? Because they had already wiped out walrus populations in Iceland, forcing them to go further to sustain the trade. Reese Pora cracked the code by studying genetic traces on walrus ivory found across Europe. It turned out that a large portion came from the far northern regions, places the Norse had never settled. So, how did Arctic ivory end up in Europe? Did walruses learn how to teleport? By the 13th century, the Thule Inuit had appeared in Arctic hunting grounds, overlapping Viking territory. The Thule were Arctic ninjas, inventing harpoons with tooth-like hooks that clamped onto walruses like Velcro. If anyone could face down the ice, the cold and beasts weighing 1,500 pounds, it was the Thule Inuit. Archaeologist Peter Jordan of the University of London, co-author of the study, summed it up. What really shocked us was that much of the walrus ivory exported to Europe came from extremely remote hunting grounds. In other words, it's highly likely the Vikings obtained the tusks from the Inuit and brought them back. This is a breakthrough, because until now, no one believed Vikings and Inuit even knew each other existed, let alone formed an Arctic trade company. To test the theory, archaeologist Greer Jarrett did something straight out of Indiana Jones Meets the Vikings. She built a replica Viking ship and paddled it across Arctic waters herself. It was a brutal, freezing, ice-choked journey, but she did it. This proved that Vikings could indeed have reached Thule territory. But who exactly were the Thule Inuit, and do they still exist today? For that, we head to Pond Inlet, Nunavut, Canada, where the average winter temperature makes your freezer look like a tropical vacation. You might think climate change would be a welcome guest here finally, no more wearing 3 layers just to check the mail. But the truth is far darker. Rising temperatures are unraveling an entire culture built on ice. Meet the Arctic heroes, starting with Natasha Simoni, a living legend in Pond Inlet. She hasn't just survived, but thrived in this brutal environment. Everything Natasha knows is tied to the ice and the ocean. And as the ice vanishes, so too do the ancient Inuit traditions. Even the Inuit elders, the living encyclopedias of survival skills, are struggling. Their ancient weather-reading techniques, once essential to life on the tundra, are now useless, like fortune-telling with a crystal ball. As sea ice shrinks, the Arctic is turning into a hot zone for shipping and tourism. Scientists have discovered that the growing traffic is disrupting seal hunting patterns. Imagine trying to eat breakfast only to have someone rev a jet ski across your table. That's what's happening to the seals. And seals are vital here. Inuit hunt them for food, clothing, and cultural continuity. It's not just 10,000 years of seal hunting at risk. Sami researcher Clemente Nakala-Darvi warns that reindeer herding, a cultural cornerstone, is also collapsing as snow turns to slush. Imagine herding animals across soup. Not so easy. As traditions fade, the Sami language is disappearing too. Words vanish, snapping away like Thanos' fingers, erasing half of cultural memory in an instant. The Inuit once conquered the Arctic, crossed paths with Vikings, and opened one of the earliest international trade routes. But now, all of it is melting away, along with the permafrost. An ice mountain or a giant pyramid? Is it a clue or a cover-up? In a recent video, I talked about the largest pyramid ever discovered on Earth. Without giving too much away, it wasn't in Egypt. It was so massive that for centuries, people assumed it was just a natural mountain. I bring it up again because there has been a similar discovery in Antarctica. A giant pyramid-shaped structure has divided the world. Some say it's a mountain, others believe it's the ruins of a lost civilization. Which side are you on? For years, the internet has been full of wild theories about what lies beneath Antarctica's ice alien bases, ancient civilizations, Nazi bunkers, and more. And now, people are calling it the Great Antarctic Pyramid. Mainstream scientists insist it's just a mountain, nothing but rock. It belongs to the Ellsworth Mountains, the highest range in Antarctica, stretching nearly 400 kilometers across the frozen desert. This peak was first spotted during the British Antarctic expedition of 1910 to 1913, and they named it the Pyramid. Honestly, that name certainly didn't help to quash conspiracy theories later. Still, scientists say it's nothing more than natural geology. They even have a word for it. A pyramid-shaped mountain is a textbook example of a nunatak, a geological term for a peak that juts up through a glacier. According to Dr. Mitch Darcy, a geologist at the German Research Center for Geosciences, the pyramid shape is pure coincidence. Mitch explains that the summit is clearly made of rock, and its form is nothing unusual, not complex, not rare. Mitch has a point. Pyramid-like shapes appear everywhere in nature. Plenty of mountains look a little like pyramids. But then again, this was the same argument once used to dismiss the Great Pyramid of Cholula in Mexico, when the Spanish thought it was just a hill and even built a church on top of it. But wait, the story doesn't stop there. As if one icy pyramid weren't enough, conspiracy theorists have spotted another. Here, I'll put the coordinates on the screen. Internet sleuths claim it's a second pyramid. And what do geologists say? The same thing. Just Mother Nature messing around. Do I know if there are real pyramids in Antarctica? Nobody does. But our obsession with the frozen continent is not going away anytime soon. Conspiracy theorist Eric Hecker recently claimed that the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station is actually an air traffic control center for aliens. And now, I really want to head to Antarctica myself just to see if I can catch a UFO. Who's coming with me? A submarine lost beneath the ice. The final frontier, or at least the place where strange things happen under sheets of ice. Antarctica is home to hidden lakes, ancient pyramids, and black holes that swallow expensive scientific equipment. Once, a robotic submarine on a mission simply vanished, as if the ice had swallowed it whole. The latest Antarctic mystery involves a 7.3-meter-long autonomous submarine named RAN. This state-of-the-art unmanned underwater vehicle was sent to survey the Thwaites Glacier, also known as the Doomsday Glacier. Everything went smoothly until this past January, when RAN suddenly disappeared. One minute it was mapping the seabed, the next poof gone, like a dying hope. I don't know about you, but the idea of an entire submarine vanishing beneath the ice in one of the most remote places on Earth is enough to grab anyone's attention. So, the question is, what else is down there? If you think Antarctica is just a giant freezer, think again. Beneath the ice, scientists have uncovered canyons larger than the Grand Canyon, an ice-covered lake sealed for millions of years, and more than 100 buried volcanoes. Why couldn't one of the coldest places on Earth also hide secret magma factories? Simply put, Antarctica is keeping more secrets than your internet search history. And every time scientists explore it, something unexpected happens. This time, an entire submarine fell into the abyss. Let's talk about RAN, the star of this mystery. Built by Kongsberg Maritime in Norway and owned by the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, RAN measured 7.3 meters long and weighed nearly 2 tons, the size of a hippo. It could dive as deep as 3,000 meters. Armed with advanced sensors capable of creating ultra-high-resolution maps of glaciers. RAN had already completed a successful mission at Thwaites in 2019, but in January of 2024, everything went horribly wrong. You might be wondering, how do you lose an entire submarine? The team, led by Professor Anna Wolin, had sent RAN on a deep dive under the Thwaites Glacier. All went well until the final dive. RAN never resurfaced. No distress signal, no wreckage, just radio silence. The researchers panicked. They halted their journey home and launched a massive search operation using drones, helicopters, sonar devices, and even other submarines. But RAN was gone, never to be seen again. So what happened to this scientific submarine? To this day, researchers are still scratching their heads. Several theories have been proposed. RAN might have been trapped beneath shifting ice, crushed, or fallen into a crevasse too deep for sonar to detect. Another possibility is that it was swept away by a current. The undercurrents beneath Thwaites are fierce. If RAN was dragged into a powerful vortex, it might have been carried far from the search zone, perhaps into an underwater canyon, lost forever. And then there's the more intriguing theory. Antarctica is home to giant sea creatures, massive jellyfish, colossal squid. Who's to say some ancient beast didn't mistake RAN for lunch? Or, as some suggest, what if aliens took it? No one can prove it, but no one can rule it out either. Theories of secret Antarctic bases have circulated for years. The disappearance of a submarine only fuels the fire. Maybe some alien colony, disturbed from slumber, simply shut RAN down and sent it sinking to the bottom like a discarded soda can. RAN's disappearance is a devastating blow to scientists studying the Thwaites Glacier, the ice mass, with enough frozen water to raise global sea levels by the height of a house. Losing RAN means losing critical data needed to predict sea level rise. If another submarine vanishes, we may have to start asking serious questions about what's really hiding beneath the ice. Arrested for artifact smuggling. In a story that sounds like a rejected script from a bad National Treasure sequel, 2 men were just arrested for trying to sell a hoard of Anglo-Saxon coins. These weren't just any coins, but historical treasures that could rewrite everything scholars thought they knew about Alfred the Great. Instead of handling this archaeological goldmine with care, the pair tried to sell the coins as if they were rare Pokemon cards at a flea market. The main characters here are Roger Pilling, 75 years old, and Craig Best, 46. Both were caught in a sting operation as they attempted to sell 44 coins that, by law, should have been declared treasure and surrendered to the crown. Who knew archaeology could be this cutthroat? Even if you shake your head at these 2 coin peddlers, you have to admit the stash was worth nearly $1 million. So what would you do? Hand over the treasure to the authorities, or cash in a few pieces of metal for $1 million? It all began back in 2015, in a field in Leominster, Herefordshire. 2 men with metal detectors stumbled upon a massive Viking hoard valued at more than $12 million, the medieval equivalent of a billionaire's secret bank account. Instead of reporting it as the law requires, they went with the finders keepers approach. Unsurprisingly, the law didn't agree, and both ended up with a combined sentence of 18 years in prison. You might think that's harsh. They found a treasure, tried to sell it, and now face nearly 20 years behind bars. But the law is the law. A few years later, another 44 coins from that very same hoard surfaced in the hands of Pilling and Best. Where did they come from? Pilling never revealed the source, keeping the secret to himself, but he did bring Best into the scheme, and Best made what could only be called an Olympic-level mistake. He tried to sell the coins to a professor in Michigan. Ronald Bude, a radiology professor and coin collector at the University of Michigan, ended up being the whistleblower. Ronald arranged a meeting between Best and undercover police officers at a hotel in Durham. The moment Best pulled out the coins, the handcuffs came out. A search of Pilling's home turned up another 41 coins. Game over. What makes this case truly explosive is that these coins aren't ordinary at all. According to Gareth Williams, curator of medieval coin collections at the British Museum, they could actually rewrite history. Up until now, historical accounts portrayed King Ceolwulf, II of Mercia, as little more than a Viking puppet, while Alfred the Great was remembered as England's sole savior. But the coins tell a different story. They prove that Alfred and Ceolwulf weren't enemies, they were allies. Alfred wasn't the lone hero everyone thought he was. He had a partner. It's almost like discovering that Batman and the Joker were actually business partners. Just a handful of coins is enough to flip history on its head. After a 2-week trial, the jury found both Pilling and Best guilty. They were convicted of conspiring to sell criminal property and of possessing criminal property. When Judge James Atkin reminded them they were going to prison, you can imagine they were crying on the inside. This case is a warning to all treasure hunters across England. If you stumble upon a piece of real history, don't try to sell it on the black market. And if you absolutely insist, at least, don't email a professor about it. Sukhoi Log, Russia's treasure mine. Russia's mining giant Polyus recently made headlines when it announced ownership of the largest gold deposit in the world. The treasure is called Sukhoi Log, located in the cold and remote Irkutsk region of Siberia. Polyus acquired the mine 3 years ago, and it now accounts for more than 1/4 of Russia's total gold reserves. An audit report released in October confirmed 40 million ounces of gold, with an average grade of 2.3 grams per ton of ore. Soviet geologists first discovered Sukhoi Log in 1961, but it wasn't auctioned off by the Russian government until 2017. Polyus purchased it in partnership with a state-owned company, then later bought out the stake to take full control. For now, Polyus is focused on reducing debt before moving forward with development, and no official start date has been announced. Even though the project will cost an estimated $2.5 billion, it promises enormous profits. CEO Pavel Grachev has stated that the company will carry out the project under the highest environmental standards. A pre-flood city rediscovered. Did an archaeologist really find an ancient city in Antarctica? A frozen mystery is slowly unfolding, and it's our job to dig deeper. There are claims that a researcher has uncovered a city emerging from beneath the ice, thanks to climate change and some hazy satellite data. Images from publicly available satellites show structures jutting out of the ice that look suspiciously like cities. They appear in the area of the Thwaites Glacier, also known as the Doomsday Glacier, which I mentioned earlier. The supposed structures include towers, grid-like street patterns, and ruins resembling stonework, but the evidence is still vague. The satellite images are blurry, and there's no physical proof or scientific research to back up the claims. The only thing people are relying on are those fuzzy pictures. Even the article that first reported this lost city admitted that confirmation is needed and that NASA has made no comment. Scientists, for their part, are staying silent, unwilling to be dragged into the debate. Could it be a city, or is it nothing at all? Antarctica is covered by ice, up to 4 kilometers thick. If there really is an ancient city buried beneath, scientists would need to launch a massive drilling campaign just to reach the ruins. Geologists also emphasize that Antarctica has been locked in ice for millions of years, which means, unless ancient humans built cities with snowplows and thermal jackets, the theory doesn't quite hold up. Still, not everyone believes Antarctica has been frozen that long. Remember those ancient maps I mentioned at the start of the video? They seem to show Antarctica without ice at some point within the last 1,000 years, directly contradicting mainstream science. Antarctica is one of the least explored places on Earth. It's vast, over 14 million square kilometers of almost uninhabitable ice. Access is extremely limited, with only a handful of scientists ever setting foot there. When people spot strange shapes in satellite images, the human brain tends to fill in the blanks, often with pyramids, aliens, or Atlantis. And honestly, imagining a lost city is a lot more fun than just saying, that's a glacier. It's Madaresen in Defer 4. What do you think? Is this a lost city or just ice shaped like one? Europe underground. A mysterious network of ancient tunnels stretches across Europe, from Turkey all the way to Scotland. And even today, researchers don't truly know why they exist. According to Dr. Heinrich Kusch, a German archaeologist who wrote an entire book on the subject, these tunnels were dug beneath hundreds of Neolithic settlements across the continent, possibly dating back as far as 12,000 years ago. Dr. Kusch also suggests that what remains today is only a fraction of the original system, which may once have been much larger. In Bavaria, nearly 600 meters of tunnels have been found, and in Austria, about 300 more. Most of the tunnels are quite small, barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. Some include tiny chambers, and even storage spaces. This suggests that people of the Stone Age weren't just mindlessly hunting and gathering, but had begun constructing meaningful works, and perhaps these strange tunnels were the beginning. Unfortunately, researchers still haven't determined whether the tunnels connect into a single network spanning all of Europe, and the biggest mystery remains: no one knows what they were built for. Crystal weapons. Crystal is usually associated with nobility and royalty. Few would expect it to be used for weapons. But at Valencina de la Concepción in Spain, archaeologists uncovered a remarkable treasure: weapons made of quartz crystal. The most notable find was a crystal dagger, along with 10 arrowheads and 4 blades of the same material. They were excavated from the Montelirio Tholos, a massive megalithic structure stretching more than 36 meters in length, studied between 2007 and 2010. What's strange is that these weapons weren't made from local crystal. Scientists believe the material was brought in from elsewhere, though its exact origin remains unknown. The crystal weapons demonstrate the community's advanced craftsmanship. Nearby, about 20 skeletons were found, though the weapons were buried separately. It's possible they served a ceremonial purpose. Archaeology demands patience, and without a doubt, the mysteries of Montelirio are far from over. Part 11. The Lavish Life of the Elite Pompeii Edition. If you think modern billionaires are wasteful, wait until you hear what archaeologists have just uncovered in Pompeii. It turns out that the ultra-wealthy of ancient Rome didn't stop at golden statues or extravagant feasts. They also had an incredibly refined sense of taste, at least until Mount Vesuvius played the ultimate Uno reverse card in 79 AD and buried it all. In recent months, researchers at Pompeii have uncovered dazzling frescoes, a haunting portrait of a child, and even 2,000-year-old graffiti. Apparently, kids scribbling on walls is a timeless tradition. The area known as Region 9 was once a bustling neighborhood filled with luxurious homes, bakeries, and some questionable hygiene practices. One of the most striking discoveries was a shrine painted in vibrant blue. Today, anyone can walk into a hardware store and buy blue paint, but not so for the Romans. You need to understand that the color blue was the Lamborghini of its time. It wasn't just decoration, it was a bold statement of wealth. Archaeologist Caitlin Barrett explained that owning an entire blue-painted room was unmistakable proof of opulence. And that wasn't the only statement. A mansion, sprawling 28,000 square feet, essentially an ancient McMansion, housed the famous fresco of the Chaste Lovers, depicting a romantic couple at a banquet. Clearly, the people of Pompeii knew how to party. One of the most haunting discoveries was a fresco showing a child in a red hood, holding a bunch of grapes beside a dog. At first glance, it sounds sweet, but in Roman art, the pomegranate often symbolized death. Archaeologists believe this might have been a memorial for a child who had passed away. Expert Sophie Hay noted that the child's gaze is chilling, something no one wants to confront in ancient ruins. Also tied to children, the excavation revealed charcoal drawings of gladiators and hunting scenes, likely created by a 7-year-old. The sketches showed warriors in combat and hunters chasing boars. This suggests that children in Pompeii had a very different kind of comic book, or perhaps they simply witnessed real-life blood sport. Excavation director Gabriel Zuchtriegel suggested that those children probably watched gladiator fights in person, just as today's kids might attend a UFC match for their birthday. The bottom line is that Pompeii's elite were incredibly wealthy. Just a few blocks away, archaeologists discovered a dining room adorned with dramatic, black background frescoes depicting Greek mythology. One shows Helen of Troy meeting Prince Paris, with Helen's servant casting a disapproving side-eye. Another portrays Cassandra, cursed to foresee the future but never be believed, making her the original "I told you so." With 1/3 of Pompeii still buried, the journey of discovery is only beginning. And with each find, we realize that Rome's ancient elite weren't much different from today's rich. Obsessed with luxury, parties, and flaunting their wealth, they left behind a legacy that makes the rest of the world both envious and exasperated. The lesson? If you ever feel broke, just remember, at least your house isn't buried under volcanic ash. The sacred tunnels of ancient Mesopotamia. The city of Ani has stood for more than 5,000 years, yet, until recently, it went largely unnoticed. Ancient Mesopotamian texts once spoke of an underground world, and now, it turns out to be real. Ani sits on a hill along the Turkish-Armenian border. It was once a metropolis that rivaled the greatest centers of the ancient world in scale, architecture, and prosperity. In its prime, Ani was called the City of 1001 Churches and the City of 40 Gates. By the 11th century, it was wealthier and more influential than even Cairo or Baghdad, with a population exceeding 100,000 before it was conquered, ravaged, and abandoned. The once radiant churches are now ruins. Excavations have revealed hundreds of churches, Zoroastrian temples, secret waterways, hermit cells, massive corridors, and sophisticated tunnels. Evidence suggests the site had been inhabited since at least the Bronze Age. An inscription discovered underground revealed that the tunnel system once served as a kind of mystical school for the Mesopotamians, showing just how ancient Ani really was. Today, around 823 underground structures and caves are known in the city, including shops, stables, water reservoirs, and even tombs. It may be that Ani's underground grandeur surpassed everything seen above ground. The long-lost flight. You know how the internet loves wild stories that sound like episodes of the X-Files? This time, it's about a missing airplane, Flight 2317. Rumor has it, the plane was found perfectly preserved in an Arctic ice block by Dr. Amelia Frost's research team aboard the icebreaker Aurora. Sounds like a Hollywood blockbuster, right? That's because it is just a movie. The story went viral thanks to a YouTube video from the channel Love Recap, racking up more than 500,000 views in just a few weeks. The video described the intact plane, passengers frozen in place, and a conspiracy buried beneath the ice. But here's the brutal truth. Flight 2317 never existed. There are no records of a missing aircraft with that number. The final nail in the coffin? The viral video itself was AI generated. The eerie narration, the dramatic still images, all products of Photoshop and artificial intelligence tools. That said, planes buried in ice do exist. In 2022, Swiss mountaineers discovered the wreckage of a plane that crashed in 1968, preserved in the ice for more than half a century until melting glaciers revealed it. Unlike the legend of Flight 2317, this was a real accident. The victim's remains had been recovered long ago, but the wreckage was left behind because it was too heavy to move. In other words, planes lost in ice are real, but they don't come with frozen passengers or elaborate conspiracies. The historical underground of Pilsen. The Pilsen Historical Underground is a complex of ancient tunnels beneath the city of Pilsen in the Czech Republic. And yes, it's the birthplace of the famous Pilsner beer. For centuries, these tunnels were used to store beer. The system was built over 600 years, from the 13th to the 19th century. It's the longest underground network in Central Europe. Initially, the tunnels were dug for water distribution and waste disposal, but they later became dedicated beer cellars. Its complexity began in the early 13th century, when Pilsen's residents dug storage pits beneath their homes and gradually linked them together. These cellars were used to store food, goods, and of course, beer. By the 19th century, Pilsen had over 19 kilometers of underground tunnels, along with one of the most advanced sewage systems in Europe. Sadly, the tunnels fell out of use and were forgotten, until archaeologists rediscovered medieval artifacts inside the ruins, sparking new interest. Today, many sections of the tunnels are open to the public, giving visitors a chance to see what Pilsen looked like in its golden age. Nikola Tesla's forgotten genius. Nikola Tesla was far ahead of his time. He was the original mad scientist, complete with messy hair and eccentric ideas. Tesla didn't just invent alternating current, the technology that powers your lights, your phone charger, and your television. He also thought beyond Earth, like communicating between planets. Tesla even believed he had received signals from the stars. In 1899, Tesla built a laboratory in Colorado Springs. This wasn't your average workshop. It was equipped with high-voltage systems, radio transmitters, and a tower 60 meters tall. One night, Tesla noticed something strange. He intercepted electrical signals that weren't random. They resembled Morse code messages sent by the universe itself. Tesla was stunned. Who could blame him? Alone in a cold laboratory, if the cosmos suddenly started speaking, anyone would get chills. Tesla believed the signals came from another planet, and his instincts told him it was Mars. And that was just one glimpse of Tesla's eccentric genius. In 1937, he claimed to have invented a device capable of transmitting energy across interstellar space, basically offering Wi-Fi for the universe. He even designed the Teslescope, a cosmic ray receiver said to capture signals from beyond Earth. Imagine a radio, but instead of tuning into FM, it picks up broadcasts from aliens. Tesla's obsession with extraterrestrial life was deadly serious. He believed interplanetary signals came from very close by, perhaps the moon, or even closer. Did Tesla stumble onto secrets modern science still hasn't grasped? Did he brush against ancient knowledge, the hidden mysteries of the cosmos, or perhaps even alien intelligence itself? The hidden inverted landscape of Antarctica. A concealed world is leaving scientists astonished. Beneath the ice lies a bizarre landscape, almost alien, that no one expected. Professor Anna Wachlin and her colleagues recently explored beneath one of Antarctica's giant ice shelves. They expected a flat, dull surface. Instead, they encountered a strange world of peaks, valleys, canyons, and swirling patterns etched into the ice. Anna, who led the research, admitted it was a total shock. They even had to verify the data multiple times to believe it was real. This unusual ice landscape, hidden beneath nearly 350 meters of ice, was first mapped by the autonomous submarine, the same RAN that later vanished mysteriously. Before disappearing, RAN discovered findings that could rewrite our understanding of Antarctic ice melt. Look at Antarctica on Google Maps and it seems perfectly flat. But Anna's team found massive plateaus resembling sunken islands, deep valleys carved by melting ice, and strange swirls as if someone had scooped the ice cream of the Earth with a giant spoon. Anna documented at least 75 spoon-shaped depressions, some stretching up to 300 meters long. Why does it matter? Because Antarctica is melting, and humanity needs to know the pace before rising seas drown coastal cities. This discovery proved that warm ocean currents are eating away at the ice from below, something satellites cannot observe. The depressions reveal that beneath what looks like a calm surface is a world collapsing rapidly. And the worst part is, it's happening under the West Antarctic ice shelf, an area the size of India. If all that ice melts, say goodbye to your favorite seaside towns, they'll soon be underwater. The Mongolian mass grave. History always reminds us that war is never beautiful. But the latest discovery in Mongolia has taken horror to an entirely new level. During excavations at Bayan Bulag, a Han Dynasty fortress dating back to 104 BC, archaeologists uncovered a mass grave filled with the dismembered remains of Han soldiers. These were men who fought against the Xiongnu nomads and paid the price with the most brutal death imaginable: execution by dismemberment, a savage punishment believed to prevent the soul from ever being reborn. The grave, once a clay quarry before being turned into a burial pit, contained the remains of at least 17 men, all decapitated, mutilated, or missing body parts. Some were even buried in kneeling positions, suggesting their final moments were anything but peaceful. According to co-author Alexei Kovalev of the Russian Academy of Sciences, dismemberment was considered the most shameful way for Han soldiers to die. It was the enemy's way of ensuring their spirits would never return. DNA and strontium isotope analysis confirmed these were not local Mongolian nomads, but Han soldiers sent from distant regions to fight the Xiongnu. This was the bloodiest stage of the Han-Xiongnu War, which raged for more than 2 centuries, from 133 BC to 89 AD, long before the rise of the Mongols and the construction of the Great Wall. Biological anthropologist Michael Ria of the University of Hong Kong praised the discovery for revealing the human cost of ancient warfare. As gruesome as their deaths were, these soldiers weren't abandoned. Researchers believe their surviving comrades painstakingly gathered the severed limbs, heads, and torsos to bury them as completely as possible. Can you imagine how horrific that task must have been? Losing comrades in battle is already unbearable, but having to collect each arm and leg as if they were Easter eggs is a nightmare beyond words. This is the first mass grave of Han soldiers ever studied, and archaeologists are only beginning to uncover what it can tell us about war, burial rituals, and life along the Chinese-Mongolian frontier. Kovalev and his team plan to continue excavating, piecing together both literally and figuratively more details of this dark chapter in history. Newly discovered Nazca lines. Thanks to artificial intelligence, an entirely new set of Nazca lines has been discovered, and they are spectacular in every sense of the word. For decades, archaeologists have patiently documented the enigmatic system of Nazca geoglyphs. You've probably heard of them, those massive figures etched across the arid desert of Peru. But now AI has entered the game, and it has nearly doubled the number of known geoglyphs. That's right, doubled, meaning twice as many as before. Indiana Jones may need to step aside, because AI is starting to take over the explorer's job. The mysterious Nazca lines were carved into the desert more than 2,000 years ago. Some are enormous straight lines, while others depict animals, humans, or strange shapes. There are hundreds of them, each more bizarre than the last. Until now, archaeologists relied on aerial photos and ground surveys, identifying about 430 geoglyphs since the 1940s. But a recent study has changed everything. A team led by Masato Sakai at Yamagata University in Japan used AI-powered image analysis to scan high-resolution photographs of the Nazca region. In just 6 months, they uncovered an additional 303 geoglyphs, a number that would surpass the lifetime achievements of many archaeologists. And of course, AI doesn't care, it's just cold, unfeeling data. So how did AI do it? Scientists trained the system to recognize patterns based on already known geoglyphs. The result was a dramatic increase in detection speed. Unlike humans, AI doesn't need snack breaks or sleep. One of the biggest surprises was its ability to identify small geoglyphs, some only about 9 meters long. These are almost impossible to detect from airplanes and nearly invisible in satellite images. Only AI's machine eyes were able to spot them. Now scientists have hundreds more geoglyphs to study and decode. To be honest, the researchers are a little overwhelmed. Suddenly, they have more than 700 mapped geoglyphs in Nazca, and now they face the challenge of figuring out their true purpose. But the deeper they look, the more confusing things become. A new hypothesis suggests that different types of Nazca geoglyphs may have served different functions. The smaller ones, often depicting humans or livestock, are found near ancient paths, suggesting they were meant to be seen up close. Scientists think these tiny geoglyphs, some less than 10 meters long, might have been made by individuals. Why? No one knows. It's as mysterious as the meaning of life itself. Meanwhile, the gigantic geoglyphs large enough to be seen from space typically depict wild animals like jaguars, monkeys, and birds. They're often located near ceremonial routes, suggesting they played a role in communal rituals. Experts believe these monumental designs were created by large groups of people working together, but their ultimate purpose remains unknown. Were they a form of communication, giant signposts, or simply art designed to impress extraterrestrials? What do you think? The oldest human face in Western Europe. Now let me introduce you to a very special figure, one that's reshaping human history as we know it. Meet Pink, not the pop singer, but the oldest human face ever discovered in Western Europe. Archaeologists in Spain recently unearthed a fossil belonging to an extinct species of human that lived between 1.1 and 1.4 million years ago. The fragments were found in the Cima del Elefante cave in Burgos, adding yet another twist to the already complex story of human evolution. Nicknamed Pink after the band Pink Floyd because the archaeologists are fans of classic rock, the fossil consists of part of a left cheekbone and upper jaw from an adult member of an extinct species. The proposed scientific name is Homo affinis erectus. Complicated, right? You're probably already familiar with Homo erectus, one of the first humans to stand upright. But who exactly was Homo affinis erectus? Scientists don't yet know. The discovery is only days old, and details are still emerging. This new species appears to sit somewhere between Homo sapiens and Homo erectus on the human family tree. Dr. Maria Martinon Torres, director of Spain's National Center for Research on Human Evolution, explained that Pink had a flatter nasal structure compared to the later species Homo antecessor. In other words, Pink's face was neither fully modern nor entirely primitive. Pink represents a missing evolutionary link, and studying their bones could be crucial for years to come. Until now, the oldest human remains in Western Europe dated back around 1.1 million years, but Pink pushes that timeline even further. Dr. Rosa Huguet called it a major turning point, suggesting multiple human species may have coexisted in prehistoric Europe. Dr. Chris Stringer of London's Natural History Museum offered another theory. He proposed that about 1.1 million years ago, a severe cold snap may have wiped out early humans in Western Europe. If so, Pink and their kind could represent an earlier wave of settlers destroyed by sudden glaciation. Humanity may have attempted civilization a million years ago, only to be erased by an ice age. It took another million years before humans recovered enough to try again. Hard to believe, isn't it? Could this mysterious species have belonged to a prehistoric pre-flood society where half-human, half-ape beings once roamed? A face from another world. A Google Earth user recently spotted something that looked like a face human, or perhaps something else emerging from the snow in Antarctica. Zooming in on a remote area of the continent's southeast, they found what seemed to be a scowling face carved into the ice, resembling the angry visage of a god. This time, it's hard to deny the resemblance. There are two slanted eyes, a nose, a small mouth, and a pronounced forehead almost like the features of an alien being. What does it mean? Some believe it's evidence of an ancient civilization that once lived in Antarctica, carving the face thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years ago before being wiped away. Others go further, suggesting it was carved by extraterrestrials who may still be hiding beneath the ice. NASA, of course, dismisses the claim entirely. They say it's just pareidolia, the illusion that makes humans see familiar shapes in random patterns like clouds, rocks, or ice. Eight-legged terror in Arizona. Just when you thought Arizona couldn't get any wilder, scientists discovered an entirely new species of tarantula. Now you've got one more reason to avoid the scorching sun and deadly creatures of the desert. If anyone asks, the new species is called Aphonopelma jacobi. It was found in the Chihuahuan Mountains, as if the desert didn't already have enough things to make you scream. Chris Hamilton, a researcher at the University of Idaho, admitted he was just as shocked, He said, "It's astonishing that we're still finding new species right in humanity's backyard." Somehow, amid the cacti and rattlesnakes, science had overlooked a hairy, 8-legged creature with a red belly and silk-spinning abilities. Before you start checking your shoes, know this: the species may not last long. Climate change is pushing its habitat out of the mountains. Rising temperatures and shifting rainfall patterns could erase its home entirely. On top of that, wildfires and human development are closing in. For now, it quietly survives in one of the most biodiverse regions of the United States, but scientists are keeping a close watch. Next time you're in Arizona, tread carefully. You never know whether you're walking past a major discovery or straight into its web. The underground city of Derinkuyu. In 1963, a man renovating his home accidentally broke through a wall and uncovered one of the most astonishing discoveries in history. Behind the stone was the entrance to Derinkuyu, the famous underground city of Cappadocia, Turkey, where thousands of years ago people lived in a vast beehive beneath the earth. When archaeologists investigated, they found an enormous network of ventilation shafts, connecting tunnels, and hidden complexes. The city had countless secret exits in the surrounding mountains. It may have been carved out by the Hittites to escape the Phrygians between the 15th and 12th centuries BC, or perhaps by the Phrygians themselves after they defeated the Hittites. Derinkuyu was cut into soft volcanic rock and remains the deepest underground city in the world, with 8 levels reaching down 86 meters below the surface. Inside were churches, stables, schools, and even an early water distribution system. The walls are still blackened by torch smoke after centuries of use. The unimaginable depravity of Antarctic penguins. Who would have guessed that penguins have a dark side? If you don't want your worldview shattered, you may want to stop here. When George Murray Levick joined Scott's Antarctic expedition from 1910 to 1913, he expected to endure freezing winds, brutal blizzards, and a diet of animal fat. What he didn't expect was to be haunted by the sight of penguins behaving like the worst reality television show ever filmed. Levick thought he would observe the graceful courtship dances of Adelie penguins and their comical waddling. Instead, he witnessed scenes so disturbing that even a nature documentary cameraman would have turned away. The greatest shock came when he saw a young male attempting to mate with the corpse of a female. Yes, exactly what you're thinking. Penguin necrophilia. As a proper Edwardian English gentleman, Levick already found women showing an ankle scandalous. Witnessing the astonishing depravity of penguins nearly sent him home on the next ship. Throughout the summer of 1911, he recorded male penguins engaging in homosexual behavior, sexual assault, and even killing chicks. So disturbed, he wrote his notes in Greek instead of English. The official report, Natural History of the Adelie Penguin, omitted all of these details. Levick privately shared a separate study titled Sexual Habits of the Adelie Penguin with only a handful of scientists. The manuscript vanished for half a century until Douglas Russell, curator at the Natural History Museum, rediscovered and published it. Modern research suggests penguins aren't the most depraved animals in nature, but simply misreading social cues. A dead penguin with slightly open eyes can resemble a receptive female. So, rather than malicious intent, it was more a case of clumsy communication. Levick endured another ordeal. In February 1912, he and 5 companions were stranded in an ice cave through the Antarctic winter, surviving on seal meat, surrounded by the chaos of penguin debauchery. After it all, he returned in 1913 and immediately enlisted in World War I, where the trenches may have seemed like a relief. Traces of prehistoric humans in the Americas. Stone tools discovered in a cave in Mexico suggest humans lived in North America much earlier than scientists once believed. The tools date back about 26,000 years, meaning humans may have reached the continent thousands of years earlier than mainstream estimates. Of course, controversial discoveries like this always come with skepticism, but the evidence is not without merit. Scholars have long debated the precise timeline of human arrival in the Americas. Most argue that humans migrated from Asia between 15 and 17,000 years ago, yet the tools in Zacatecas, Mexico, date to 26,000 years, with some theories pushing the timeline back to 30,000. While no human DNA has been found to confirm the presence absolutely, other sites offer similar clues. For instance, artifacts in Brazil dating back more than 20,000 years. It's becoming harder to ignore the truth. Everything is getting older, including the story of humanity itself. The missing ship. The discovery of what looks like a ship has reignited a storm of wild Antarctica conspiracy theories. A Google Earth user spotted what appeared to be an overturned cruise liner frozen into an ice sheet about 160 kilometers from the Antarctic mainland. It rests on a slab of ice, lightly dusted with snow. Strangely, according to Google Earth's measurements, the ship is about 120 meters long. You can clearly see its hull, smokestacks, and even the upper deck. It looks exactly like a cruise ship. But why would a vessel be lying on its side in the middle of an ice sheet? Some say cover-up, some say Nazis, others claim aliens. If it's just a natural coincidence, it's an uncanny one. It could be a yacht lost at sea, a decommissioned ocean liner, or simply a forgotten cruise ship. It's not far-fetched to think a ship drifted into Antarctic waters and froze in place. Entirely possible. Still, conspiracy theories have run wild. Some insist it belonged to a politician, proof of secret dealings in Antarctica. Others claim it was a Nazi vessel left behind when they built hidden bases during World War II. The back door to hell. Forget Disneyland, Mexico now has a destination that will take your breath away. Beneath an old sun-baked church, archaeologists have discovered an entrance to the underworld. A hidden back door, straight into Mexico's hell. Not Disney, but just as thrilling. First, some history. Mitla, in the native Zapotec language, means land of the dead. It was once a city of the Zapotec civilization, who worshipped the death god Pitao Bezalao, the kind of deity who would win any Halloween costume contest. The Zapotec lived and worshipped here until the 16th century, when the Spanish arrived, destroyed the Temple of Death, and built a church on top of it. A priest named Francisco de Burgoa once wrote in his journals that this was the back door to hell. He described tunnels, grand halls, royal tombs, and most terrifying of all, a shaft leading directly into the underworld. Francisco claimed that only by building the church could the Spanish seal the passage and keep demons from escaping. For centuries, no one fully believed the story. Archaeologists searched but found nothing, eventually giving up. It seemed there was no gateway to the underworld, but the truth was they hadn't dug deep enough. When Marco Vigato, founder of the ARX project, took up the search, everything changed. Using modern technology like ground-penetrating radar, electrical resistivity scans, and seismic surveys, he uncovered astonishing structures. Beneath Mitla lies a network of tunnels and chambers, some more than 30 meters deep, the equivalent of a 10-story building. One chamber beneath the San Pablo Apostol Church measured 14 meters long and 10 meters wide. Nothing has been found inside yet, but archaeologists believe the royal tombs may lie buried there, exactly as Francisco described. Zapotec kings, dressed in feathered robes, wearing jeweled crowns, and buried with weapons. Ground-penetrating radar sent waves through the soil. Resistivity scans measured electrical currents, and seismic tools recorded the speed of sound through the rock. The results confirmed that the tunnels almost certainly exist, the very gates of hell that the priest once warned about. Today, the descendants of the Zapotec still live primarily in Oaxaca, Mexico, with a population of about 1 million. Ironically, 4 centuries after their religion was crushed and their temples destroyed, most are now Catholic. Missionary work, it seems, was devastatingly effective. The entrance to the Hollow Earth. The Hollow Earth theory has long had its followers. The idea is that inside our planet lies an advanced race, living in their own atmosphere, with their own animals and monsters completely independent from the outside world. In other words, a world within our world. First, let's be clear, the Earth is not hollow. Its interior is a blazing hot core of solid iron and nickel. This is a scientific fact, but some still believe our planet is like a Kinder Surprise egg, filled with monsters. And according to them, the entrance to the Hollow Earth lies hidden somewhere in Antarctica. What's fascinating is that this theory was once taken seriously by both science and politics, at least until fairly recently. Then again, this was a time when people were still burning witches, so perhaps not the most reliable era. If such an entrance truly exists in Antarctica, no one has found it yet, and given the frozen wilderness, it's unlikely anyone will anytime soon. The odds of discovering such a hidden gate are about the same as falling off the edge of the ocean straight into outer space. The Nazi cloning base. At the end of World War II, around the year 1943, the Nazis were said to have moved to Antarctica to build a secret base. Their chosen site was Lake Vostok, a massive subglacial lake buried beneath nearly 3 kilometers of solid ice. A German naval admiral, Karl Donitz, was once quoted as saying, "The German submarine fleet has created a fortress for the Führer on the other side of the world, in Antarctica." Rumors spread that German naval archives contained reports of a submarine arriving in Antarctica in 1945, just as the war was ending. The crew supposedly carved out an ice cave and hid crates filled with relics of the Third Reich, including Hitler's personal secret files. An even stranger tale claims that the submarine U-977 carried the bodies of Hitler and Eva Braun to Antarctica, where scientists were to clone them in a hidden facility. Of course, none of this has ever been proven. The only confirmed event is that in December 1938, a German expedition did set out for Antarctica to establish a whaling station and possibly a naval base. But when they arrived in 1939, they found the area already claimed by Norway and left without building anything. Or perhaps, not entirely. The lost city of Nur. North of Tel Aviv in Israel lies a city forgotten for generations. Archaeologists believe it was once so large it could be considered the New York of the ancient world. It seems impossible that such a significant urban center could vanish into the shadows of history for millennia. Yet that is exactly what was uncovered at En-Assur, a site scheduled to be cleared for a new road. Instead of a highway, workers discovered one of the largest ancient cities in Israel, dating back about 5,000 years. Surrounded by massive fortifications and clearly planned, the city's scale reveals its extraordinary importance. Traces of urban planning are everywhere: streets, neighborhoods, agriculture, and trade with nearby communities. Thousands of people lived at En-Assur during the early Bronze Age. Even more remarkable, beneath the 5,000-year-old structures lay buildings dating back as far as 7,000 years. Archaeologists uncovered pottery, tools, and a large temple. En-Assur will undoubtedly remain a central focus of archaeological study for many years to come. The biblical battlefield. It was a hot day at the biblical battlefield of Tel Azekah. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and a toddler named Ziv, barely past diapers, made history. She was probably just looking for a snack. Instead, she picked up an Egyptian scarab amulet nearly 4,000 years old. While you and I, at age 3, were busy eating crayons or playing with worms, Ziv Nitzan had already become a tiny Indiana Jones in glittering Crocs. Her sister Omri recalled, "We were just walking along the path, and out of 70,000 stones, Ziv picked up the one that turned out to be an important artifact. What are the odds?" A scarab was an Egyptian amulet shaped like a beetle, used for luck, protection, and rebirth, and perhaps even for keeping toddlers from throwing tantrums. Nearly 38 centuries ago, people would never leave home without one. But it wasn't only the Egyptians who made them. The scarab Ziv found was likely crafted by the Canaanites, a people who lived in the lands of modern Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, and Syria. They worshipped many gods, built city-states, and apparently dropped an amulet along a path waiting 4,000 years for a child to find it. And the site itself is legendary. According to the Bible, Tel Azekah is where David defeated Goliath with nothing but a sling and faith in God. The scarab, however, predates the Bible entirely. Archaeologists like Professor Oded Lipschitz and Dr. Daphne Bentor were thrilled. They confirmed the artifact's authenticity and praised Ziv for reporting her find. The child was given a certificate for her accidental genius, and somewhere, a seasoned archaeologist surely shed a tear, having been outdone by a toddler. The true purpose of Stonehenge. A bold new theory suggests that Stonehenge was not an ancient astronomical clock at all, but something entirely different. For centuries, it has stood as a symbol of mystery. Massive stones arranged in a perfect circle, aligned with the sun, built by people with no wheels or cranes. Rising over the Salisbury Plain in England, it has become the world's most iconic archaeological monument. Yet now, a surprising theory reframes its meaning. Stonehenge may have been less about timekeeping and more about unity. Traditionally, scientists believed it functioned as a calendar because the stones aligned with the solstices. But according to new research from University College London, the story is more complex. Evidence suggests Stonehenge was a political project, a massive stone handshake, symbolizing unity among distant Neolithic tribes. Like humanity's first peace treaty, but written in stone instead of parchment. The proof lies in the stones themselves. They did not come from nearby. They were brought from all across Britain. Each tribe may have contributed a stone as their piece of the grand project. The famous bluestones came from Wales, 225 kilometers away. The Sarsens came from 24 kilometers away, and the massive altar stone was dragged from distant Scotland. Why would a tribe from northern Scotland haul a 6-ton rock across land and sea without wheels or roads? They would not, unless it carried immense symbolic weight. Archaeologist Mike Parker Pearson believes Stonehenge was more than a cosmic monument. It was a gathering place where tribes could set aside rivalries, unite their beliefs, and perhaps perform rituals together. Stonehenge was a place where everyone brought a piece of home to build something greater than themselves. In a scattered world of tribes, Stonehenge was the Neolithic version of a group chat. The Neanderthal face. Your face is much smaller than that of the ancient Neanderthals, and scientists are still searching for an explanation. This is a downgrade no one asked for. At some point, humans must have favored larger faces. Tens of thousands of years ago, a Homo sapiens stood in a dim cave, facing a Neanderthal cousin. Both wore animal hides, but one difference stood out. The Neanderthal looked as though he could split a coconut with his forehead, while modern humans appeared far more delicate. The truth is, the modern human face, small, soft, seemingly designed for Instagram filters, is the product of a long evolutionary journey. And now researchers may have the final clue. A team from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, led by Alexandra Shu, asked, why did the Neanderthal face keep expanding, while ours stayed compact? The answer lies in growth timing. Neanderthal faces kept developing into adulthood, like a lifetime of weight training for the jaw. Modern human faces, however, stopped growing at puberty right when the first mustache hairs appear. By tracking facial development across species, scientists saw a pattern. Neanderthal bone cells kept growing, while modern human cells slowed down at the exact moment facial growth halted. This phenomenon is known as cranial gracilization, a softening of the skull over time. But why evolve smaller faces? Wouldn't a sturdier Neanderthal build be better? In fact, this change gave humans a huge evolutionary advantage. A lighter, smaller face left more space for a bigger brain and better communication skills. Ancient tales of Merlin. Finding an old toy in your grandparents' attic is one thing, but finding a handwritten manuscript in Old French, tucked inside a 16th century tax document, that's something else entirely. This is exactly what happened at Cambridge University Library, where researchers stumbled upon a fragile scrap of parchment stitched into the binding of a book from Huntingfield Manor. It turned out to be part of the suite Vulgate du Merlin, a rare French sequel to the tales of King Arthur from the legendary Lancelot Grail cycle. Fewer than 40 such manuscripts exist today, each unique, copied by hand by scribes who likely worked between outbreaks of plague. At first, researchers thought it was a tale of Sir Gawain, but when Dr. Irene Fabry-Taranchi, an expert in Old French literature, examined it closely, she realized it was an original piece of the Vulgate Merlin. Think of it as the expanded universe of Arthurian legend. The fragment described two scenes: a fierce battle where Sir Gawain and Christian knights wielding Excalibur faced Saxon kings Daedalus, Muas, and Brandalis, and a grand banquet where Merlin appeared disguised as a musician, his silk tunic shining so brightly it lit the entire room. The manuscript was badly worn, folded, and stitched into the book like a medieval receipt. To study it, researchers used multispectral imaging, Connecticut scans, and digital 3D reconstructions, piecing it back together like a 13th century puzzle. While it doesn't rewrite history, the find adds another precious story to the legendary Round Table. And given its rarity, it could even surface at auction one day. It's a reminder that sometimes, while cleaning up, you might stumble upon a forgotten tale buried in dust. The 1.5 millionth artifact. Archaeologists spend lifetimes searching for artifacts, but sometimes, ordinary people stumble across them in their own backyards. The Portable Antiquities Scheme of the British Museum recently announced the registration of its 1.5 millionth find, an innocent-looking lead seal belonging to Pope Innocent IV. 1.5 million artifacts, just in England and Wales, a number so vast it makes you want to grab a metal detector. This small papal bulla, once used to authenticate church documents, marked the program's historic milestone. It was discovered on July 8th, meaning the total has surely already grown. During the COVID lockdown, metal detecting had slowed, but with restrictions lifted, finds surged again. To celebrate the milestone, the British Museum published a list of the 10 most important discoveries ever recorded by the program. Part 35. The Giant Coral Reef. As coral reefs worldwide struggle with bleaching, the discovery of a new reef is a rare gift, which is why Australian scientists were stunned to find a reef over 500 meters tall, higher than the Empire State Building, located within the Great Barrier Reef System. It is the first of its kind discovered in more than 120 years. The Schmidt Ocean Institute made the find on October 20th during a year-long expedition aboard the research vessel Falkor. This reef is one of only a few detached structures in the area, discovered with the help of a remotely operated robot named Sebastian. Wendy Schmidt, the Institute's co-founder, remarked, "Our understanding of the ocean has always been limited. Thanks to new technology, which acts as our eyes, ears, and hands in the deep, we now have unprecedented ability to explore. Any man, the dace of the new miles, and know the noun." It was just one of many breakthroughs this year. The Institute also identified 30 new species and documented the longest sea creature ever found, a siphonophore measuring 45 meters.